Teaching in China could be the best or the worst thing you can do for yourself. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Teeks and I've been living and working as a teacher in China since 2017. This video will be useful for you if you are a teacher who wants to move to China and teach here, or you are someone who's just started their teaching journey and you think China might be a possibility, or if you're someone who wants to come and work in China and you want to know what it's like living and working here. This video is based on my personal experience. It's not an influencer fantasy or something like that. Please also do your own research as well as listening to my experience. So I do have a few notes on my phone in case I miss something out. If I do miss something out, please just comment below whatever your question is and I will do my best to get back to you. Firstly, why China attracts teachers. The reason is quite straightforward. Salary might be better than your own country. Cost of living is cheaper in China compared to the UK and the US. There are benefits packages included in majority of schools. Real benefit packages. China is extremely safe and convenient. The ability to save money, opportunity to travel within Asia because you're just a few hours away from Bali, Thailand, Philippines, and long-term stability if you choose the right city and the right school. The reasons, of course, are all based on people's personal experiences, and it really does depend. I first moved to China not because of money or living costs or anything like that. It's because I really wanted to travel within Asia. I wanted a new experience. I wanted to learn more about different cultures, and it was the perfect opportunity for me. That was a few years ago. If you ask me the same question today, it has changed a little. Now it's a mixture of lifestyle, the cost of living, finances, things like that, and building myself an opportunity here. Let's get to the nitty-gritty part, the visa and work permit. In order to come to China to teach, you do need a degree, minimum 2 years experience. You do need a degree and a minimum 2 years working experience, preferably in a school. You will need to get your degrees and papers notarized. You will also need to get the Chinese embassy authentication. You will need your contract before you move to China because your contract is part of the visa process. I do want to make something very, very clear here. Your work should have a HR department or an assistant who should guide you throughout the whole step. If there is nobody doing that and it's confusing, that's a red flag. Once you arrive in China, within the first 24 hours, someone from your work, the HR or an assistant, whoever the person is looking after you, should take you to the police station within 24 hours. This is very important. If they don't do that, please find out what's happening. This is a legal requirement. I don't know what's happening with the microphone. Let me check. Once that is done, after a day or two, you should be getting a full medical exam. Yes, again, you will probably need to do it before you move to China because that's a requirement for you to get into China. Remember, the visa that you get to get into China is not the visa that allows you to live and work here. In order for you to get that visa, you need a work permit. In order to get a work permit, you need the medical exam. This medical exam includes a bunch of tests. I don't remember exactly, but there's blood tests, there's x-rays, things like that. You will get the results in a few days. The results of your tests will take around 2 to 3 days, depending on your city and how busy the health clinic or hospital is. Once those results are ready and all your other papers are all prepared, your HR will apply for your work permit online. Once that work permit comes through, which usually takes around 2 weeks, again, it depends on your city and the immigration center, etc. You will then go to the immigration center with your person responsible for your visa. You will go with them and submit your passport in. The passport is for your resident permit that allows you to live in China. This usually takes around 2 to 3 weeks maximum. Again, it really depends on your city. My city takes us now, it's actually like a week, a few days, sometimes it's 1.5 weeks. It really depends. Just a small note, during this time, you will not be allowed to travel unless they give you a white paper slip, which is like an A5 paper. That paper will allow you to travel within China in case you feel like traveling, getting a train to a city nearby or going somewhere else for the weekend. However, I would suggest that within arriving to China, you don't do that. Just wait for your passport to come in case you think it's a bit of a hassle. But if you really need to travel, you can do so with that A5 white paper with the red stamp on. Once all that is done and you have your work permit card and you have your passport back, your HR might keep your work permit card. Your work permit card is something that the authorities can scan and all your information will come up for them. This is completely normal if your department decides to keep it on your behalf. However, do make sure you check everything yourself and you get a copy of it. You have a PDF or something saved and you know your work permit number and things like that. I personally did not mind my HR keeping my work permit cards. It's been like that for years, so I don't really see it as something to be worried about. However, trust your own gut, trust your own instincts. Types of schools in China and the reality of international schools. So this part is quite important and I do believe it's easily misunderstood by a lot of teachers. So in China, you have public schools, you have bilingual schools, and there's also international and bilingual schools. International school does not automatically translate to international students here in China. There are a lot of Chinese students with foreign passports. So that means that English levels can really vary. Parents have very high expectations of the school, the teachers, and their child. It's very important to note that cultural understanding matters more than your teaching style. Come with an open mind. Don't question why is this wrong and this is not how this is done. Please don't do that. Come with an open mind. Be curious. Just wonder the how part and the why part, but in the best possible way. You are in a whole different country. It's different culture. You need to understand it. Even if you don't agree with it, you need to come to some kind of understanding. Let's get to the fun part, pay and benefits. In best case scenario, your school should give you your salary, health insurance, housing. That's my TV. It just randomly thinks I'm speaking to her. I'm not. Okay, so where were we? We were pay and benefits. So in the best case scenario, you should be getting your monthly salary, your housing allowance, health insurance, and home return allowance. These are 4 basics you should really be getting as an international teacher teaching in China. If there was anything that might cut out here, it might be the annual home return allowance, but salary, housing allowance, health insurance, non-negotiables. If they don't offer that, you need to run. So for my own personal example, I work in an international and bilingual school, so that means I do have a few benefits. Let me have a look. What do I get? So I get my monthly salary, of course, but my salary is split between my Chinese bank account and my UK bank account. My work sends it to my UK account. I choose the amount, and then I have whatever's remaining into my Chinese account, so I can use that to pay on Alipay, like my electric bill, gas, water, and maybe like groceries and things like that. If I ever feel like I'm falling short, I can still use my UK card, which is linked to my Alipay account. I also do get a retirement bonus, well, towards the end of each year. I also get a compliance bonus, which is towards the end of the contract. If everything's well, you get a compliance bonus. I also have attendance bonus. So I have 5 days in which I get attendance bonus for. However, if I use all these 5 days, then they take away that money. I have moving in allowance. So if you come from abroad, you get that money. After you're here, you get reimbursed. If you're within China, you get it at the end of the year, which was my case because I was already living here, so I didn't really need any big costs or anything like that. Weird noises coming from upstairs. Sorry. It's Sunday, I don't understand why. I also get housing allowance, so that means each month my work pays for my apartment. They don't do it directly, they just pay into my bank account, and I use that money to pay to my landlord. In case you didn't already know, in China you have to pay your rent every 3 months if you choose to live in your own apartment. However, for most schools, they do have their own dorms and things like that, so maybe you might choose to live in their accommodation if that's easier for you. Personally, I don't do that. I did it in my first year, where the apartment I was given was chosen by my school, which was actually fine for me because it was a 2-bedroom apartment and I lived alone for 6 months, and then it was just the last few months I had to share with someone. Housing allowance really depends, again, on which city you live in China. If it's an international city or a bigger city, it really depends on the cost of living there and what the average rent and stuff is there. It also depends on whether you're single, whether you have dependents, partner, things like that. By partner, only a married partner will count. I also get end of contract moving allowance, so if I do decide to move to another city or if I want to go back to my country, I will have the means to do that. Again, these are my own benefits. It doesn't mean that all schools here in China do that. If they do, then I think you are in good hands because those are some of the perks you should have. China. Next, living cost and lifestyle reality here in China. Coming to China means you either win or lose financially. As I mentioned earlier, rent is paid every 3 months if you do decide to live in your own apartment and not the school accommodation. So you need to prepare for that, as well as deposit the first time you move in, which is 1 month's rent. Utilities are far more cheaper than US and UK. My electricity is maybe 200 RMB, maybe for 2 months. Transport here is affordable. You can take a taxi almost everywhere, but also depends on the city you live in. If you live in Shanghai or Guangzhou, it's going to be slightly higher compared to where I live, which is Wuhan, and it's more affordable. Metro is also affordable. Here it's about 2 kwai entering and leaving, all cost. The bus also costs the same, 2 to 3 kwai. Food can really be cheaper or expensive depending on your taste and your lifestyle. If you want to eat foreign food or Western imported food, then it will cost you slightly more. Whereas if you choose to eat local food, then you can basically live on takeouts here. You do need to know that living in China is super convenient because of the transport system, the online shopping such as Taobao, which is like Amazon but way faster. The online deliveries for food and everything you need are super fast. Because of the conveniences, things can easily add up, so you do need to be careful on that. If you do want to save, it depends what you come to China for. If you want to teach and travel, great. If you want to teach and live in the moment, or if you want to be financially responsible, it really depends on your lifestyle and what your preferences are. Savings do also depend on the city, your lifestyle, your own discipline, and whether your housing allowance and some other benefits are included or not. Teaching culture and mindset shift. You are not teaching in your home country anymore. You are in a different country. Things will be different here. Things to really consider. Parenting styles, just like anywhere in the world, are different. They will differ from yours and what you're used to back in your country, as well as emotional regulations, which will differ. English proficiency differs, and parental involvement in their child's education and the school can be quite intense at times. If you are going to teach in private schools, which I have been doing since I moved here, you do need to remember that parents are customers. Students are your number one priority, but you need to remind yourself, so are the parents. I really believe this is where most foreign teachers really struggle. They don't understand how parenting works, how the styles work here. I feel like this is where most foreign teachers really struggle. They really struggle to grasp these changes here in China. If you can understand the culture, if you can spend some time getting to know the parents and observing what life is like here, then I think life will be much more easier for you, rather than always wondering why and how are they doing this differently and this is wrong, and having all these other expectations. Instead of doing that, just don't have any expectations. Just make sure that your students do the best and you do your best without expecting what you think is right, what you think is wrong, what is real, what is not real, what some students might have, what they don't have, what they lack. This is not about that. This is not about what you know and what you learned and what you were trained for. So is teaching in China worth it? Really depends on your mindset, how much you're willing to adjust and adapt. How your experiences are depends on how you see things day to day here. The process is long to get here and be here. The adjustment is also very real, and the structure, it might feel a bit rigid at times. But once you are settled, life is more stable here. It is very safe here, especially if you have family as well. Some of the benefits can be life-changing. You can save, you can pay off your mortgage, you can be traveling around these beautiful places around China and within China. It can be an excellent choice if you choose wisely. I do want to wrap up with some points. English exposure, the cost of living, the lifestyle, your pay, etc. It depends on the city that you choose. HR is more important than the school's branding, so you might want to get into a really popular international school or what you think is really good, and it might turn out to be a nightmare. Your best option is to choose someone who's being very open, honest, reliable, trustworthy, and organized with you from the get-go. And I know that's hard to do when you are doing video calls initially, but I'm sure you can trust your own instincts. If they're not giving you all the information and things that you asked for, things that you're curious about, and they're not answering your questions, and they're not walking you through everything step by step, that's a red flag. The first 3 to 6 months might be your hardest months in China because you will be adjusting to so many different changes from job, living, lifestyle, just everything around you. time, and it might feel very lonely and isolating at times, but I promise you it does get better. However, if you do feel like after 3 to 6 months you still have this very deep feeling inside of you and you're just not enjoying it, then you know what to do yourself. When you do all the interviews and things like that, make sure that you do check on what kind of career progressions that the school offers, what kind of help they provide you in terms of medical, housing, everything that you need and want. They should be able to answer those questions or pinpoint you to the correct department within the same company. And finally, your exit really matters. If you do stick to your contract for the entire period, for example, 1 year, 2 years, whatever you signed for, you need to make sure you remain on good terms with the school in terms of the HR, the managers, the head teacher, whoever's in charge. You need to be on good terms, because if you decide to stay in China, you will need a reference letter and also something called a cancellation letter, which you will need for your next job. If you don't have those two documents, then you cannot get another job in China or go to another school. Also, you probably will need those references in case you go back to your own country. Overall, I'm very biased. I've had some great times in majority of the schools I worked in. You really have to get used to the leadership, whether it's foreign, local, or both. You need to work it out and decide if that's the right place or company for you or not. And I guess sometimes the only way you know if something's right for you is actually doing it and trying it yourself. For me, China has opened so many different opportunities and doors that I know back in England I wouldn't be able to do. There's no way that I'll be able to live in a 3-bedroom apartment that's new and modern and furnished that costs me £340 per month for rent, which I don't need to pay for. Instead, I can use that money towards my savings or other goals. I feel very safe here, especially as a woman. I don't feel like I need to worry. I can walk outside anytime I want. I don't need to worry about my phone being stolen. No one's going to touch anything of yours. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I can't think of anything right now. I probably will remember something later on, and if you do have something else that you want to know and you want me to address, or something I might have forgotten, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel so I can keep making these.